Okay, I'd like to call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 at 7:04 PM. First thing on our agenda is a discussion for North Village. So basically what we're doing is we're just going to get caught up to speed as where we are. I understand the developer has completed Phase 3, and there's been discussion right along as to what the trigger points are as we go into Phase 4. My understanding is there's some bonding requirements, as well as-builts that are required to go from one phase to the next. I did inquire a week or so ago with the building commissioner, and I had him call the engineer as I was sitting there, and Phase 1 has been submitted and reviewed for as-built. Phase 2 was submitted. Phase 3 wasn't submitted at all. So those some of the things that we need to discuss tonight to see what our process is. But along with others, I requested town council to come in to try to help us navigate through this complicated little project that we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jay, if you want to start with that.
Yeah, sure. So this project's been around for a while. It's an older approval. It had multiple phases. It's had many changes. It also has an accompanying memorandum of understanding that kind of locks in some of the requirements because the select board is parties to that. In many ways, the memorandum of understanding mirrors the comprehensive permit as amended throughout the years. The zoning board over the years has done little amendments and taken little votes to help the developer, like kind of spur development. They've laid down the kind of the rules of the road a little bit on other matters, but generally speaking, the zoning board, notwithstanding some disagreements here and there, has tried to do things in a way that protects the board's interests while still making sure that the developer adheres to some of the rules. So when it was kind of discovered that there was work beginning on Phase 4, I think there was some concern as to, whoa, wait a second, let's catch up. Let's figure out what's going on. So between building and myself and Mike and speaking with some other folks, we tried to cobble together all the component pieces, examine to the best of our ability with respect to all these other votes that have been taken, what is required to commence Phase 4. It appeared that a little bit had gotten lost in the shuffle by the applicant in terms of getting inspections, getting meetings together with the town through its building commissioner and an engineer retained by the board, getting these as-builts done, getting phasing done, making sure the right inspections are happening, just kind of getting it back to normal practice. So there was a bit of correspondence between Ken and the applicant, between myself and Ken, between myself and Mike, so they were just trying to make sure we had everything figured out. Then on New Year's Eve, we got a letter from North Brown through Ed Typley, who noted a number of facts that indicated, I think probably because these issues were brought to light, that they are in the process of catching up. They did point out, and I think this is helpful because I had heard this just shortly before that letter, that the term commencement of phase wasn't necessarily the starting of that roadway, but the issuance of building permits. So starting a little work might not be the worst thing in the world, provided, however, that they still adhere to the process of making sure our engineer is up to speed, the building commissioner's up to speed, this board's up to speed. So I think there's an effort by the North Brown folks to kind of recapture some of that process that I think we need going forward. And, that, I think that's really important. I don't know what the status of our engineering, Mike and I spoke earlier today, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, we're using, is that Leonard that we're using?
Yeah, it's Doug Bush.
Oh, Doug.
It's
Okay.
Haley Ward now, but
All right.
we were,
I thought you were familiar. I seen you up
Yeah.
on Oak Street. Yeah,
So,
Been the one doing our
yeah,
reports.
right.
and it's really important that they kind of be our eyes and ears on this, kind of moving forward as we get into it. Now, there's been some work out there, Mike and I were talking about, and I don't know if the folks at Haley Ward want to talk about if there's been work done, how do we inspect that, making sure, like, if there's been roadway done, compaction, base levels, all of that good stuff.
yeah, so I went out today, this morning actually, and I saw that they had
Which we have.
kind of what you call it, an access road? An access road. I don't know if they necessarily started the road, but they've cleared way for it.
Okay,
So I don't believe that the road has actually begun, it's just they
okay,
cleared the limits potentially for that road.
okay.
Well,
So we could
they've
catch
done-
up
They've
if-
done a little bit more than that. When I went up there a week or so ago, whenever they were working on it, they actually excavated down 2 to 3 feet.
It does look like
They-
it's a
they-
little bit
they-
lower, for
they-
sure.
They excavated down, and then they backfilled it with the material that's on site.
Okay, so I didn't know
So,
about the backfill.
That's right. And so at the very beginning of this project, there was a lot of discussion. It was specified where this material could come from. I don't know how long, if you've been here since the beginning of this project, but anyways.
It would have been in, like,
There was some
junior high.
arrangement that the developer had, was going to be able to get some material out of the Goya project up in Webster, and they started using it and found out that didn't pass the testing. And that's what my concern is, right? So proper material, I don't know if you're confused, Neil, or you're kind of scrunching your head,
No, I
but
just don't
this
know
is,
that part.
okay. But anyways, proper compact, you remember using the Bobcat with the roller on the front?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. And that wasn't acceptable back then. So I just want to make sure that the road is being done properly.
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm after. Nothing more, nothing less. Whatever it is you're supposed to do is all I want. I don't want anything extra out of that. But there was a lot of discussion at the very beginning that these guys aren't aware of, that they had to live through it. Dan's not here, but everybody else is new to this project, so all that stuff
I
is.
think Dan
is
and I
forgotten.
are the only
And my-
originals.
Yeah, I mean, you guys were before me.
Yeah.
I've been on it since 13. But I just want to make sure it's done the right way. When I was made aware of the fact that you were doing the road, I went up there and seen what you were doing, right? There has to be some sort of monitoring to that from the engineer that we use to represent the town. That's all I'm concerned about.
So I guess the question, and I think the answer is yes, but I want to make sure, is that given the fact that there's been a little bit of work, some backfilling, or do we have a level of confidence from Haley Ward that, we can catch up with what they've done so far, make sure we're in a good place as we lead into, we still need as-built, we're still going to need a bond, all that stuff. Do you have
Yeah.
confidence?
No, I have confidence. Neil had just sent me or just provided was that the infrastructure as-built? And I believe they're still working on the grading for that phasing, the previous phase, which we don't have yet, but once we get that, we can do a fairly quick review to catch up on that.
Okay.
So yes, to answer your question.
Infrastructure, what about the as-bills for the structures themselves, for this buildings?
For the, I don't have that.
That would be a requirement, correct?
Not usually
Well,
for
think it's-
as-built.
This is from him, that he submitted today, and this is what was my understanding, is that the as-bills for the prior phase have to be submitted before you can enter into the next phase.
Right, but
Yes.
before you can get the building permits, but I don't think from an engineering perspective, our engineer is going to be reviewing structural stuff on buildings.
No, just.
No, civil location.
Right, Right, oh, that, yeah, yeah, absolutely, the location,
Correct.
absolutely.
Yep, no.
And there was early on, before all of you, where units were moving around, and we kind of had to recapture some of that through amendments and everything, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would ask the question,
Good.
I've been tasked with kind of managing this project,
Well, not managing, so, anyway.
overseeing this
Yeah.
project.
Yep, the BRI's in the field.
Yeah. I need to know the sequence that has to take place for them to do steps or move into phase 4, what they can do in phase 4, where it should be, what we should have. And I can make sure that I get this in place. But I mean, do we have to have as-built? Is bonding supposed to be in place? Or is it just simply they can go with it and nothing really happens until building permits?
No, I mean, I think it's important that we stick with the same schedule, and it's referenced in Ed's letter in terms of the periodic meetings and inspections. That is in parallel track to 2 other requirements at least that I see prior to building permits. So it's important that Haley Ward and your office are meeting with Neil and the North Brown team on a routine basis and going over this stuff as stated in the permit. The requirements for the as-bills and the sign off on those as-bills and the requirement for the bonding tracks the building permit deadline, because the board determined the permit says that you have to have those 2 items prior to commencement of the next phase. And for clarity purposes, in 2018, the board voted pursuant to the request of North Brown that would be the building permits. So I think it's important that everyone does the work before that, so there's not a lag. But that hard and fast deadline for that stuff, no building permits until we get that bonding. I want to see, I don't care about, I leave it to Haley Ward to determine the value, along with you, of what that bond is. I want to make sure, and I don't know if the developer is going to use, are you going to use a tripartite agreement? Do you have any idea what you're going to do?
No, I don't. They're working on it.
Okay.
Ed and Tim weren't
So
available.
I'm going to want to see that agreement. We've worked on for, as you know, for the planning board, a number of surety agreements. I'm not exactly sure I care whether it's a true bond. I don't love true bonds, or a tripartite agreement, or a passbook agreement. I doubt the applicant is going to want to do a covenant, because they probably want to start selling units in phase 4. I care about the form of that. You, this board, and Haley Ward should care about the numbers. That's the amount plus the typical contingency, which is, I don't know if that's tracking at 25% still, but
Okay, but would that bonding also include the completion of phase 4? Or whichever form of bonding it is? Or is that only a bond for phase 1 through 3?
I think, and I could go back and look at the permit, that it's for all the remaining infrastructure.
That's usually the case with planning board and now.
It's usually the case, but I haven't been able to.
I'll go back and look and specify. I don't have that provision in front of me. I don't think it's just like for top coat.
My understanding from, and reading the MOU and all that bonding was to take place before the start of phase 4, and that it was supposed to be bonding for completion of the project. That, to me, says it's the project.
Right.
That doesn't say excluding phase
Yeah,
4.
as Les just said, the typical bonding would be for the project. It wouldn't be for what.
And that's pretty
was designed.
typical for
Yep.
later phases in these 40B projects, where we kind of tip into because a kind of a covenant governed everything before then,
Right.
and we released lots, and now we're in the part where the security is actually,
Well, there's also the
Tradition.
other security that's listed out is the sale of the last 4 units cannot happen until completion of the project.
right, that's all the work. So that's like a little pocket piece of security.
But just for clarity, in your 2018, everybody has this piece of paper, halfway down, it says regarding as-built, Smith Secundus stated that there is a condition in the existing comprehensive permit under number 7 that says that the as-built shall be provided to the town engineers review prior to the commencement of the next phase. And then that's when the discussion came in. So what constitutes the next phase? And that's where it came in and said that the commencement of the next phase is as the issuance of building permits. Today, in the report that Doug Bush had sent in, it says it appears the roadway in Phase 4 has been partially excavated, its width is defined, however, a partial as-built for Phase 3 has not been submitted and reviewed, and therefore construction of Phase 4 should not have commenced. Submit as-built for review prior to the commencement of final phase. So if that's what it is, that's what I'm looking for. If it's something different, then
No, I
that's
mean,
what I'm looking for.
the
clarity.
board's vote is the board's vote. Now, generally, we consider commencement, we would try and define it as, serious site work. Here, there was obviously an accommodation made.
Yeah.
And that should be the measuring stick. The board voted that way.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, where we are. With that as-built,
The as-built prior to starting that.
prior to building permits. That's what the board's vote was. That may not have been what the board originally had in mind, but as of November of 2018, that's what the board voted.
So I'm just looking for that clarity to know where they stand, where I stand as far as.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Veronica.
How many buildings have they built up there now?
72
72.
You know the,
that are off. have
Well,
been sold.
okay, so now, what is the problem with them starting on another building, and we're going like through, from day one, before we do a shovel full of dirt, we got all this problem.
it's not a problem. So let's settle down for a second and let me explain something to you. None of this is personal, okay? There's an agreement and all we're doing is following the guidelines of the agreement. I didn't make the agreement. I
I'm
wasn't
not
sitting,
saying-
I wasn't sitting on the board in 2009 and then they go through it. And we've worked very well, Neil's sitting over there, it was a bumpy road at the very beginning and we worked very well to get to this point, okay? At this point, there's triggers that come in, right? That's all it is, it's just identifying it as to what it is. Nobody's in opposition, it's just to make it clear.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, but a lot of stuff has changed, like Jay has said, from the beginning to now, right? A lot of things have changed, so to make it clear to everybody, so when North Brown leaves here today, the engineer leaves, and we leave, we're all in agreement as to what we're supposed to be doing. That's all we're trying to
Yeah,
do.
but that goes back to, explain to me, if you can.
Yep.
I'm asking a stupid question.
No, you're not.
All right, it's like a development.
Yep.
I built this house, I got a permit for it. I got another piece of land over here, and I'm going to build another house over here.
I think
That's what the,
I think that I figured out the answer to your question. In a typical scenario, right, and
Yeah.
Les, feel free to jump in if I'm wrong. In a typical scenario, you're going to go into a subdivision and you're going to bond that subdivision right from day one,
Not from day one.
no?
You're going to covenant it
Okay.
until the essential infrastructure is done, and then when they want to start marketing units, then they'll switch to financial security.
It's near the beginning of the process,
In the beginning of the process, they,
not typically three-quarters of the way through.
our security is a covenant where we don't allow building permits
Okay.
to issue until infrastructure is done, and then when they're ready to start selling units,
Yeah.
they switch over to
Okay.
financial security. That's typical.
But this is unusual to have this much
Well,
of a development with nothing,
Well, because there's a 40B.
I get that.
So I love the idea of withholding building permits rather than having money, because chasing money is always a loser. Here, though, with a multi-phase thing, it became important for us to make sure that, so as a developer doesn't walk away in later phases, that we have financial security
Right.
to cover the remaining work. So that's why Phase 4 was viewed as an important thing to make sure that we tipped it into financial security.
Does that help you, Ronnie?
Yeah.
So are they able to start Phase 4 or not?
They're able to start the infrastructure work, provided, again, they're working with our engineer and our building commissioner to make sure the proper inspections, meetings are happening. They can't get building permits until we get these as-built and until we get the bonding in place as required.
So I will, moving forward, I'll get that meeting together when the other parties are all available to have that meeting as soon as possible to start that process.
Yep.
Just through the chair, Jay.
Yep.
So Phase 2 has been submitted, so that should be completed, right? And Phase 3 should be submitted, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, those expectations, I'm just saying where we are right now with the documents that have been
Right.
submitted.
I think
Phase-
the two big documents we're going to need before building permits is that as-built, complete as-built through Phase 3
Yeah.
and the bonding.
And the completed review of Phase 2.
Phase 2 was,
Submitted only.
we reviewed Phase 2 as-built, and we provided comments. I don't know how it's been, I haven't got anything back from.
No, that was my understanding. So a comment went back and then you didn't
I've
get
given
any
comments, but I
response.
haven't got anything back.
Right,
So-
so we need to wrap up that piece too.
So if I'm understanding it now, is they're able to put in the road, put in their infrastructure, they're not going to get a building permit until they satisfy all these other things?
That's correct.
Okay. You understand that, Neil? Yep. Everybody else here at the table understand that?
But even that's not supposed to start until they have a meeting with myself and the.
That's right. We got to get things
Right,
back on
yeah,
track
yeah.
with the routine meetings and inspections on stuff.
Like I said, I could set that up, as soon as possible.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
other parties get back.
Yep,
Yeah.
and it appears, based on Ed Typley's December 31st letter that, and, I mean, Neil's here, so, that there's an intention to get all that back on track.
Okay.
You have any questions for us, Doug?
I don't.
Neil?
Doug, can I ask you a question? Did you get Phase 1 complete for review and everything, or wasn't you still missing?
Phase 1 was, that was when Bill was here, Bill Cuddick.
Yeah, I think Bill did.
Bill was still here,
It
Phase 1
wasn't
and
switched
2.
over until
Bill
Phase
took over,
2,
yeah,
right?
he took care of that. I don't know if I actually have a copy of the as-built. Phase 2, we reviewed.
Phase 2, we did get an as-built, Phase 1, we did get an as-built on it, because there was a bunch of conversation about where the as-built, how do you figure out the as-built from the edge of pavement and all this other nonsense. We went in circles, and until I finally got them cornered in a little corner and realized that because you don't have property lines for the individual units, you only have the big property line. No, you actually have a center line outlined for the entire development, and that's where your as-built should be pulled off of, not the center line or the road where it is, where it's supposed to be. So if they're off by 10 feet, they could have an issue, right? So that's how it's figured, is off the center of the road.
Well, I might want to ask the board if they might want to think about having Phase 1, 2, and 3 as-built submitted for the engineer that we're utilizing now to make sure that we're completely up to date.
Well,
with all
that's what
those.
we just had a conversation on, is those things have to be caught back up. You have to identify this bonding. There has to be, this meeting has to take place before they do any work with this, any further work with this road or any infrastructure that goes in there, to make sure everybody's on the same page.
But you're right, yeah, all the historical documentation will help inform, you know,
Because
what
Phase
was
1, I don't believe Doug was involved with Phase 1. So
No,
going,
Bill Cundiff was. so
right, but going forward, for him to be able to utilize everything he has in front of him, I think it would be beneficial.
I think it's always helpful. I'm sure he would like it for the file, so.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it would be also helpful if the punch list of items still outstanding, and like an estimated timeline.
Yeah, you'll have to go through that. We can rely on Doug to
Yeah,
give
I
us some
think that's
feedback on
gonna,
that.
should get picked up through the Exhibit A
I think
to
it would
the
just
bond.
help when, when to expect things, you know what I mean, of,
As big as the punch list is, it's a lot smaller than it was, so. See, I will give you credit, Neil, once in a while. And there's a bunch of different things on there, so we're looking for your guidance, Doug, as to an acceptable answer as to, all right, cracking on Phase 1 is going to be fixed with the top coat. Is it getting any worse? Is it, if it's the same as it was 5 years ago, 2017, actually, when it was put on almost 8 years ago? Is it stable, that it can wait for that, or it doesn't need to be fixed? So just little stuff like that, they were looking at a little guidance on.
And there's a lot of overlap on things to be repaired or addressed that are still because of where they are in Phase 3, trying to get that Phase 3 stabilized, which is affecting Phase 2 and Phase 1
Yeah.
down through, so.
So for your benefit, Neil, question was asked before the meeting started. Actually, Les asked me this question. This goes back to a Pam Holmes question.
Oh, jeez.
That, about the center of the access road, all that stone and stuff that's in there, when that's going to be addressed. So we'll be looking for answers on stuff like that. And so as you got the downside of new members is now you're going to have to go back and revisit all these things that were in there in the past that Dan and I got numb to over the years. Does anybody else have anything on this? No. You good to go, Doug?
Yeah.
Yeah. You understand that you gotta work with these guys to get where you need to go, and you can bring all that information back to Ed and Tim?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right.
That was easy. Thanks, guys, for coming in.
Thank you.
We signed the vultures. Yeah, I know.
Is it helpful reminders?
No, that's a joke for Jen. She puts them in here for me. And she never took them out, so they stay. I threatened her with a good time I was going to leave, so I got a sad face and whatever. You go through this emotional roller coaster on this thing. All right, so I just want to see what this draft annual report is that we have in there. We do have a, all right, so our draft annual report, it has all our names listed correctly, all the members that are on here. That's going to go into our annual book. I don't know if everybody's looked at that. Do they have any? They don't have any concerns. I would look for a motion to approve the annual report that Jen has provided.
I make a motion to approve the annual report as provided by Jen.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That was easy. Okay, we have a set of minutes, which is a very short one, for December 4th, 2024. So, Margaret, you'll abstain from that, and then everybody else can vote on it.
Yep.
If everybody's good, somebody can make a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the December 4th, 2024 minutes for the ZBA.
As submitted.
That's submitted.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Master plan volunteer. Anybody want to volunteer for the master plan?
I thought you did.
You do? Did I? You thought I did?
No,
yeah.
actually,
You were confused.
I guess so.
Yeah, Margaret?
Do you know any more about it?
No, I know that Margaret has volunteered, so
Once a week.
So what is it?
That's the master plan for the
it's
town.
just a master plan for the town.
That's right.
You'll like it, it's fun.
Not counting the homework.
Right, right.
Has it started yet?
There is a test?
Yeah, yeah, they got the ball rolling a little.
Yeah, that's all right, don't worry about it. They met tonight at 5 o'clock, so you're good for another
So do
few.
they meet once a month?
I don't know.
Once a couple weeks, every couple weeks? Or?
After you're sworn in, they're gonna,
Then they'll tell you.
Hey, don't worry, your stormwater's almost over.
Yeah, I know it.
This is twice a week, no big deal.
okay, we already signed our
Yep.
decision for Southwest Main Street. So, I'm going to make a motion, and somebody can make the motion, I'm just going to read what it's going to be. So, the motion's going to be to enter into executive session to discuss strategy as related to 3 Huff Road, and to leave executive session for the sole purpose of adjournment. Somebody can say as so moved, whatever you want to say.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A roll call.
And a roll call vote on that, please.
Aye, Palmer, Jim.
Aye, Ron Forget.
Hi, Margaret Bacon.
Aye, Les Stevens.
Fitzpatrick, aye.